Alright, everyone, we're back with more Apollo Justice Ace Attorney. Episode 1, Turnabout Trump. We're on the last leg of the trial coming up here. Phoenix just accused Gavin of being the murderer, and we went to recess, so we pick up there. It's April 20th, 2:32 p.m., District Court, Defendant Lobby number 3. Mr. Gavin and Mr. Wright are both in the judge's chamber. Who'd have thought today would turn out like this? May I? May I? Huh? What? Hello, sir. Please pick a card. Well, what's all this about? I know who this is, but I don't think I should spoil it just yet. Is this one okay? Excellent. I have a message for you. The last hand is about to be played. You'll need a trump card to make it. A trump card? The card you have chosen is magical. Use it wisely and the game is yours. That is all. An ace?
It appears to be the ace of spades.
Where do I remember that card from? I know there was this really awesome album, but never mind. Mr. Smith's hand has 3 aces, and Mr. Wright's 2. It is 5 aces in all. It is true. I have seen it, the 5th ace. There was cheating, I swear to you. The missing 5th ace. Wait, this splotch of red. Is this blood? You have your trump card. Now it's up to you to cut the deck and draw the truth. My father's fate is in your hands. I know you can do it. Okay, so it's Phoenix's daughter. This blood-stained card is my trump card for finding the truth. Very interesting. I fell deep into thought as my mind raced to understand what this all meant. That girl. I'd seen her recently, but where? In the locket. That's when I made the connection. Here she is. Bloody ace added to the court record. All right. April 20th, 2:45 p.m. District Court Courtroom number 2. Court will now reconvene. Defense Attorney Christoph Gavin, will you please take the stand? Now then, if you would, Mr. Payne. Yes, Your Honor. The witness, will the witness state his name and occupation? Is this farce necessary, Your Honor? Believe me, far stranger things have gone on in this courtroom. Fine, I'll play along. First, there's one thing we need to have made clear. How did you know about the secret beneath the victim's hat? By secret, I'm guessing that he means the fact that Mr. Smith was bald. Forgive my curiosity, but what is it about this fellow's head? Your Honor seems to have an inordinate interest in it. Objection. Ah, I wouldn't call it inordinate, Mr. Gavin. Mr. Wright. What do you think you're doing, Wright? Wow, things sure look different from the other side. You know what I mean, Apollo? Speaking of looking from the other side, let's consider something for a second. The victim wore that hat all night, never once taking it off, except for that one time. That one time being the instant he was hit. Oh! When Mr. Wright returned from reporting the crime, the hat was lying on the floor. Mr. Wright picked it up and placed it on the victim's head. In other words, in order to have seen Mr. Smith's bald head, you would have had to have been there in the hideout at the time of the crime. In other words, I must be the real killer, is what you're trying to say. Not bad, Apollo. Rubble, rubble, rubble. Mr. Galvin, I'm afraid that I haven't been entirely honest with the court. What? What? Oh, I assure you I had the noblest of intentions. I did it all to protect my client, Mr. Wright. Yet, I'm afraid in the current situation I see little reason to hide anything. Very well, allow me to tell you the truth of what happened that night. Clack. Finally! You may begin your testimony. Tell us, how were you involved in the events of that fateful night? Witness testimony. That fateful night. The rage I sensed in that man that night troubled me, so I returned to the club. I went down to the basement and peeked in through the little window to the hideout. It must have been right after the murder took place. The victim was dead, as he appears in the photo. A bald head, an unconscious girl, and Wright holding a bottle in his hand. I sensed that was not the best place for me to be at the time, and so I left. That's when the call came from Wright. Bullshit. So, you witnessed the murder? For better or for worse, I missed the actual moment of the deed. Mr. Galvin, may I remind you that you are on Mr. Wright's defense team. Your testimony is clearly disadvantageous to your client. Rubble, 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 rubble. Yes, Your Honor, I move that I be disbarred for introducing this evidence against my own client. What else could I say? I'm standing on the witness stand, after all. So you are, Mr. Gavin. And you had to testify as you just did. You had to tell them you saw the scene of the crime through that little window. Mr. Wright, you had to say that, because that was the only probable window of opportunity. Right, Apollo? Oh. Clack. Mr. Wright, the defense should do the cross-examination, not the defendant. Mr. Justice, are you prepared? Yes, Your Honor. I can't believe I'm going up against Mr. Gavin. This trial is getting weirder and weirder. Cross-examination. That fateful night. The rage I sensed in that man that night troubled me, so I returned to the club. Hold it. That man, you mean Mr. Smith? He was different from the other customers. His aura, shall we say. I knew he was a serious poker player, but it was more than that. So then, you knew the true nature of your client's job? Of course, but I also knew he wasn't engaged in gambling, which would be illegal. Well, it makes sense that he'd know. They were friends, after all. Worried for my friend, I returned to the club. You see, I feared this Mr. Smith might be someone coming to settle an old score. I see. What happened then? I went down to the basement and peeked in through the little window in the hideout. To the hideout. Hold it. The little window. You mean the one used to keep watch up the stairs? Yes, a relic of the ancient past. The Black Marketeers used it, I believe. Why would you go through the trouble of peeking in through the window? Wouldn't it have been easier to just open the door and go into the room? I didn't want to upset Wright, you see. Upset Mr. Wright? Yes, what if my fears had been unfounded? I'd be walking in on their match. Bad form, to say the least. So far, everything he's saying makes sense. It must have been right after the murder took place. Actually, let me stop right there, because I want to take a look at some of the... Okay, when we open this... Oh, we can't see anything from there. When we open this up... Okay, there's the window right there. But is there any other... No, there isn't. Okay. We haven't gotten there yet. Pay attention to that, where that window is. Must have been right after the murder took place. Hold it. How do you know it was right after the murder? Really? No need to shout, Justice. Irk. I was just getting to that part in my testimony. Ah, there he is, the coolest defense in the West. We know and love. Even when you're standing up there on the witness stand, some things never change. I was afraid you'd change too. Right, but you haven't. You and that overbearing personality of yours. With friends like these, who needs enemies? The victim was dead, and he appears in the photo. Oh, as he appears in the photo. Hold it. By photo, you mean the second photograph of the crime scene. Precisely. You see, he wasn't wearing his hat then. I saw his head when he was dead. And then Mr. Wright came along and replaced his hat. Can you describe the scene of the crime for us? A bald head, an unconscious girl, and Wright holding a bottle in his hand. Hold it! Those were the only three at the scene of the crime? Yes, as far as I saw, at least. Then we're back to where we started. The killer was the defendant, Phoenix Wright. Who else could it have been? But why didn't you talk to the police? 2 reasons. First, I didn't actually witness the very moment of the crime. Second, my office was asked to defend Wright. Even after seeing what I had seen, I couldn't abandon my friend. Objection. There must have been someone else there at the moment of the crime. Justice, I just said I saw no one, not a soul. But that goes against what Mr. Wright said. Ah, yes, the mysterious fourth person. Who would conveniently be the real killer, I suppose. Glad to see we agree, Mr. Gavin. Let me pose a question, then. Tell me, what possible reason did the real killer have to swap cards in the victim's hand? Ah. Ooh. Perhaps you can show us a reason why such a thing would be necessary. How can I show something I can't find myself? Remember, Apollo, the card that was swapped out was the 5th ace. The 5th ace. Right. Well, Mr. Justice, the question of why the killer would swap out a card has been erased. Can you point to the reason? Ooh. Do I want to present? I don't know. You know what? Sure. It's now or never. The defense would like to present evidence to the court. Evidence showing the reason why a card was swapped out. Then go ahead and point out your reason, Mr. Justice. Why did the killer take the 5th ace? Why did he? Oh, because it has a blood splatter on it. Splatter. I think. Is there anything else I can look at? A single drop of blood marks the front of the card. When we flip it over, sure enough, it's a red back. So, go for it. Take that. My reason is, this. This is an ace. Why? Why, it's got blood on it. Right next to the spade. What? This is insane. Why wasn't I told about this? Why? Could this be? Could this be the missing fifth ace? Rubble, 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 rubble. Inconceivable. How could you? What are you doing with that card? Well, that's the thing. Why is Gavin so upset? It's just a fishy card from some fishy girl. Oh, that card? It's mine. That is, I picked it up at the Borscht Bowl Club that night after the murder had occurred. I gave it to my daughter. Cards are her stock and trade, after all. Objection. No. Impossible. Unacceptable. The court can't accept this evidence. It's a fraud. A fraud? How can you be so sure? What? I would think that the only person who could claim it was a fraud would be the one who took the real card from the crime scene. The real killer. Allow me to elaborate. What if this trace of blood was the reason? The reason for the killer to take the card from the scene of the crime. Where are you going with this? Take another look at the photo and at the victim's head. At the moment of the crime, his hat fell to the floor, and a trickle of blood ran from his forehead down the back of his head. Couldn't a drop of that blood have fallen on one of the cards? I suppose. The killer then took the card to hide the blood. Objection. Regardless, that evidence is non-permissible. Didn't you play Rise from the Ashes? Oh? Right? Regardless of how you wasted the last 7 years, you used to be a lawyer. You know what a serious crime it is to conceal evidence. Oh, we can discuss the finer points of our legal system later. What's important now is that I've answered your question. What are you talking about? You want to know why the killer would have taken a card from the crime scene. And now I've told you. That one drop of blood would have been decisive evidence, you see? Objection. This is baseless conjecture. Baseless. Objection. Who's objecting now? Oh, it's Phoenix. Oh, I assure you it's quite based. As am I. What? It's amazing, really, how a single drop of blood on a single card can lead us to the truth. It's quite simple. Well, Apollo? Yes? Try picturing the scene of the crime. Try picturing the scene of the crime in your head. Ah, fancy Nintendo DS 3D graphics. The murder took place in the hideout. The body of the luckless victim was found at the poker table. And before the killer swapped a card out, there was a single card with a drop of blood on it in the victim's hand. Given this, there is one decisive problem with this scene. Well, what is it? Let's keep it simple, shall we? Given that there was a drop of blood on a card, whose position in this diagram doesn't fit? Whose position in this diagram doesn't fit? It's the victim, because, the cards are in front of him, but the victims, the killers, the witnesses, the second witnesses? Whose position doesn't fit with the bloody card? It's got to be the victim. Take that. Well, isn't it the victim's position that's the problem? I don't follow your logic here, Mr. Justice. Well, look at the victim. Look, the victim was struck on the head, sending him back in his chair. You'd think any blood would fall behind the body, not onto the table in front of him. Ah! Take a look at this photo again. If he bled in this position, the blood would fall on the floor, not on the cards. Why, that's right! So, what does this mean? Incidentally, we were sitting in swivel chairs. Swivel chairs. Oh, man. Apollo, try turning the chair around. Okay. Okay, Okay. Ah, the chair was facing the other way. It would have to be. So, we have to assume... God damn it. I didn't get... So we have to assume that at the time of the murder, the victim's chair was facing away from the table. But that doesn't make sense. When Mr. Wright returned from informing the police, which way was the chair facing? When I came back to the room, the body was facing as seen in this photo. That would mean the killer turned the chair back around. We can't prove any of this. Let's take the next step. Look at the diagram once more. We know the victim was facing away from the table at the time of the murder. But this creates another significant contradiction. Again? Let's test your reasoning skills again, shall we? Apollo, whose location on this diagram contradicts our new understanding of the crime? The victims, the killers, or the witnesses? The victims, the killers, the witnesses, the second witness? Oh man, I'm starting to go a little cross-eyed here. Whose location creates a contradiction? I don't... Well, it's got to be the killer, because the killer would have to like go all the way around. Yeah, let's say that. I think the victim was struck from the front, correct? Indeed. Well, wouldn't it be hard for the killer to hit him from the front, sitting where his indicator currently is? I would think it'd be quite hard, yes. Objection. Yes, but what you're saying makes no sense. Why would the victim suddenly turn to face the wall in the middle of a game? I believe a sufficient reason will soon come to light. Well, what? There's something in this diagram that makes far less sense, actually. Look again at the diagram. Apollo, if the victim was struck while he was sitting as shown here, where would his assailant be standing? Oh! Try marking it on the diagram. But there's no room to put a mark where the killer should be. Don't worry. Let's think it through and see what we find. We know the victim was facing toward the wall at the time of the crime. Do we, though? That's the only thing we know for sure. Try to forget about everything else. Where would the killer have to be standing to strike our victim? Take that. The killer had to be standing, well, here. Objection. You get points for flair, but that's about all you get. Eck. I thought I was onto something there, too. I hardly need to point out that standing there would be impossible. The victim is facing a solid cupboard. Or are you claiming the killer climbed into the cupboard and hit the victim from above? Oh, climbed the cupboard as in being on top. Okay, are you claiming the killer climbed the cupboard and hit him from above? Ha! It's simple logic, really. If this was the only place the killer could have been standing, then that means that at the very moment of the crime... Wait, I know. At the moment of the crime, the cupboard wasn't there. What's this now? We're leaping with logic here. I mean, that's the only explanation, right, Mr. Gavin? Heh. Your Honor, I have a suggestion for the defense. We should arrange to examine the cupboard in the hideout immediately. Clack. Bailiff, send a team to the crime scene immediately. Have them try to move the cupboard. Your Honor. What? There's one more thing your men should look for. Please give them this. please give this to the bailiff. Yes, I see. You do belong in the courtroom after all, Mr. Wright. I do my best. Rubble, 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 rubble. Let's forge ahead here while we wait. Look at the diagram once again. It's been changed. If the killer was standing here at the time of the crime, then this cupboard wasn't here. Which means... Apollo, try moving the cupboard. Okay. Thank you. As you can see, the cupboard was the problem. At the time of the murder, it has to have been as shown here, which blocks the window. Now everything is in place to reconstruct the moment of the crime. Oh my! What's this? What is it now? Look at the diagram of the crime scene once more. It appears we found yet another contradiction. What I believe to be the final contradiction, in fact. Huh? Oh, dang! Notice something, Apollo? Our line of deduction is rapidly approaching its logical conclusion. Clack. Now then, Mr. Justice, please point to the new contradicting indicator. Is it the victim, the killer, the witness, the second witness? Which indicator in this diagram contradicts what we... It does that on its own. It pulls away the dialogue box, but that's okay. Take that. About this cupboard. Are we all okay with assuming it was moved? Sure, why not? Well, if it was, something really doesn't fit. The cupboard would completely cover up the window to the stairs. Ah! That's right. Someone standing outside wouldn't be able to see in. Someone like Mr. Gavin. What did you say? Oh? Is the coolest defense in the West losing his cool? Don't expect me to play along with your little game, right? It's only a game until someone gets killed, Mr. Gavin. And someone was, while the window to that room was blocked by a cupboard. So, Mr. Gavin, perhaps you'd like to explain this to the court. Exactly where did you witness the crime scene from? Excuse me, Your Honor. Order. This is a court of law, and I will have order. We just now received word from our investigative team at the Borscht Bowl Club. I'm sorry, the bailiff is talking. They examined the cupboard. Let me reread it as the bailiff. We just now received word from the investigative team at the Borscht Bowl Club. They've examined the cupboard in the hideout, Your Honor. Okay. Oh, and what did they find? Well, Your Honor, it turns out there is a secret passage behind it.
What? Nani?
Rubble, 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 rubble. Ah, yes, I believe I mentioned something of the sort before. This was one of the tricks to the room many of our regulars know about. I do remember him saying something about that now that he mentions it. A secret passage is a handy thing to have when you're engaged in illegal goings-on. Never know what you might need to duck away from. I'm sorry, I'm going to reread that. Never know when you might need to duck away from the eyes of the law. So the room has a secret passage? Where does it go? The other side connects to the restaurant above. The underworld bosses could get away from the cops and enjoy a cold bowl of borscht, no doubt. Just like our killer. Oh dear. You see where our line of simple deduction You see where our line of simple deductive reasoning has led us, Apollo? I see it, but I don't believe it.
That is why you fail.
That girl wasn't kidding when she said I needed this trump card for the last hand. At the time of the murder, the window was blocked, and the victim's hat was only off his head for a few minutes between Mr. Smith's murder and Mr. Wright's return from calling the cops. In other words, the only place anyone could have seen the victim's bald head was from inside the hideout. Well, Mr. Gavin? Come on, say something.
Dare I ask what really happened that night?
Actually, I think we can probably figure it out ourselves at this point. That night, for whatever reason, our killer had a date with Mr. Smith. A date with destiny. There he crouched, hidden in the secret passageway behind the cupboard, holding his breath, waiting for just the right moment. Then the chance came, and he took it.
Oh!
Eek! What? Why did you do that? Wait here. Miss Olga Orley was out cold, struck by Mr. Smith. But his time was soon to come. Mr. Wright went upstairs to call the cops, leaving Mr. Shady Smith alone in the hideout with the unconscious dealer. Then our killer stepped out from the secret passage and into the hideout. The victim must have heard the cupboard sliding aside. He wheeled his chair around to look and got clobbered. After the deed was done, the criminal must have seen the blood on the card. He would have, of course, realized the need to destroy the evidence. That single spot of blood told the whole story of the crime. Too bad for him he didn't linger any longer in the hideout that night. If he had, he might have noticed the card on the floor. And the fact that they were all red. Cards on the floor.
Mm.
Rubble, 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 rubble. But then why didn't he take the card with him?
Well, it seems this trial has taken yet another turn. I'm truly sorry I had to see this day come, Mr. Gavin.
Mr. Gavin?
Mr. Payne?
Yes, Your Honor.
The prosecution will continue its investigation. As for Mr. Phoenix Wright, the defendant, he is hereby cleared of all suspicion. Believe me when I say that I don't believe this is happening, Mr. Gavin, but I'm afraid circumstances call for me to issue a warrant for your arrest immediately.
Objection. Oh, no need to apologize. I rather enjoyed myself. It's not every day that you get to witness a legendary attorney's dirty tactics firsthand. Your point, Mr. Gavin? Frankly, Your Honor, I'm shocked that a person of your caliber would be taken in by such a low-grade parlor trick.
Excuse me?
The defendant is cleared of all suspicion. This is hardly the time for jokes, Your Honor. Mr. Wright hasn't proven anyone's guilt or innocence here. What he has done is use illegal evidence to put the blame on someone else. And not just anyone else, but me, his own defense attorney.
Illegal evidence?
Objection. Let me ask you, Mr. Gavin. Is there still any reason at present to suspect me of wrongdoing? Of course, this bottle, for instance. The bottle of grape juice Mr. Wright was drinking. How do you intend to explain away the fingerprints on the murder weapon? And not just any fingerprints. Am I right, Mr. Payne? Actually, yes. The fingerprints on the bottle were, upside down. Uh-oh. I seem to recall this being an issue earlier. The
court, in this case, demand an explanation. I can think of only one reason why one would hold a bottle upside down. And that is to hit someone with the bottom of the bottle. Well, Your Honor? See how the caught fish squirms to the last well, Apollo? Yes? Your boss seems awfully concerned about this bottle still. But I'm sure you can come up with a suitable explanation. Just like that. Yeah. Just like what? Why would anyone grab a bottle upside down other than to... Gulp? Don't let him trick you into thinking his explanation is the only legitimate one. Is there really another? Take another look at the court record. I believe you'll find a simple answer there in plain sight. How about you just say the answer in plain words? Clack. It would be hasty to deliver a verdict with unanswered questions, indeed. Well, Mr. Justice. Mr. Gavin said that the court, in this case, demand an explanation. Don't worry, justice won't leave until justice is done. Perhaps the defense would care to enlighten the court. What evidence do you have to explain why the fingerprints on the bottle are upside down? Well, it's this photo, of course. So he's got to pull it out of the crate. And the only way to really do that is to have an inverted grip. It's actually easier to show you than explain, Your Honor. Place that bottle on the floor next to your chair. Excuse me? On the floor? Yes. Now reach down and pick it up. Without getting out of your chair. See? You naturally go to pick up the bottle by its neck. With your fingers upside down. Rubble, 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 rubble. Look at this photograph taken on the night of the murder. The defendant, Mr. Wright, sat here, playing piano, bottles of grape juice on the floor to the side of his piano bench. He would have naturally picked up the bottles upside down several times. Wow, I can't believe it was that simple. Recall our dinner that evening, Christoph. I was drinking my usual juice then, too. Basically, you used the bottle on the table to do the deed. But then you must have remembered. So you went and picked up one of the bottles from under the piano. And you switched the bottles. You took one of Mr. Wright's bottles and made it look like the murder weapon. Rubble, 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 clack, clack, clack. Order, order, order! What do you have to say to these charges, Mr. Gavin? Fascinating. So this is the legendary attorney's famed tactic of misdirection. What? You claim that I switched the bottle. Where is your proof? Proof? Well, that's, as I thought, more baseless conjecture. I'm afraid your bottle of proof is quite empty. Objection. I wouldn't be so sure about that. Your Honor, when you initiated the investigation of the hideout earlier, do you recall I requested an additional investigation? Yes. I have your memo about that here. Retrieve the bottles from under the piano at the Borscht Club. And here's one of the bottles in question. What are you going to dust that for fingerprints too? I would be surprised if any were on that but his. Mr. Gavin probably wouldn't make such a novice mistake, true. That bottle won't bear a trace of anything. Say, Apollo. Yes? Why don't you go ahead and examine that bottle? But why? Just humor me. Mr. Wright, that bottle will solve this case once and for all. But what? Nani? That's some bottle. Okay, oh. Why, what have we here? There's something inside the bottle. It appears to be the Five of Hearts. What's this? That card, it can't be. Recall the unpleasant woman's testimony for a moment. Miss Olga Orley? Yes, our little swindling Devochka. That night, I planted the card like I was supposed to, and Wright lost the last hand, just like he was supposed to. Then Smith searched him. But the planted card was gone. The trap failed. Oh, wait, this isn't... You're telling me that this is the planted card you disposed of? The one you mentioned in this piece of testimony? I happened to put my hand in my pocket and found a card. Yes, I snuck a peek at it and found it was the Five of Hearts. I had a feeling something might happen, so I disposed of the card before the game. Disposed? Where? There was an empty bottle of grape juice I had been drinking right beside me. I threw the card inside the bottle. The Five of Hearts. This is the card. The bottles were swapped, and the only one who could have done that was the fourth person in the club that night. You, Mr. Christoph Gavin. What the hell? His rage broke the laws of physics. That is all. Is this your idea of revenge, Phoenix Wright? Revenge? Revenge for the events that took away your attorney's badge 7 years ago? My past is like my logic, straight and true. Nothing's changed. All I did was point the finger of justice in the proper direction. Fine. I'm glad we could have this little... I know how to say that, and I just... Tete-a-tete. I think that's what it's called. Glad we could have this little battle, right? This is insane. What about me? Don't I get to prosecute anyone? Rubble, 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 rubble. Clack. I believe this time we've finally come to the end of our trial. Mr. Payne, do you have a report for us on Christoph Gavin? He's admitted everything. We're processing his arrest now. I see. Still, one has to wonder why he would do such a thing. He didn't even have a connection to the victim, did he? None that we know of, Your Honor. Mr. Wright, have you anything to add? I'm afraid I can't shed any more light on the matter. About this victim, Mr. Shady Smith, his occupation was listed as traveler, an odd profession to be sure, and that's all we know about him. I'll arrange a follow-up investigation, Your Honor. Good, Mr. Wright. Yes? 7 years, and you still haven't lost your touch. Christoph Gavin was a man with much significance for me, both as a friend and as a lawyer. He was extremely talented, to be sure. I needed two things before I could confront him. The first was a place where no injustice would be tolerated, this courtroom. The second was a man who would tolerate no injustice. In other words, a defense attorney. You, Apollo. Me? This is a dark time for our legal system. A twisting of justice brought on by our very own initial trial system. We have to set it right. Mr. Wright. Our work lies ahead of us, and I, for one, am looking forward to it. Clack. Very well, this seems like a good time to announce a verdict. The court finds the defendant, Mr. Phoenix Wright. Not guilty. Yay. Oh, that's that confetti is really lame compared to the prior game. Court is adjourned. April 20th, 4:28 p.m. District Court Defendant Lobby number 3. Thanks, Apollo. You came through just like I thought you would. I'm pretty sure I didn't do a thing in there. It was you who courted Mr. Gav, the killer. I couldn't have done it by myself. You sensed it too today, didn't you? Your ability. Ability? Yes, a sensitivity I lack. You'll come to understand it soon enough. Wait, I wonder if he means... I have one question for the witness then. You say you saw the moment the defendant hit the victim. Is this true? Of course it's true. What's this weird vibe I'm getting? I'm freaking out. What was that, Mr. Wright? You'll have to find the answer to that question yourself. The answer is... The answer, right. Today was full of questions without answers, most of them about Mr. Gavin. What possible reason could he have had to commit murder? Perhaps you'll learn that in the days to come. Huh? Wait. You don't know, do you? This locket is the key. Huh? Oh, that reminds me. I met the girl whose picture is in that locket of yours. I think we could say it now. Her name is Trucy. Your daughter, right? That's right. She's my daughter. You know, you were right about this locket. Huh? I took this off his neck the night he died. But it looks like our dear Russian scam artist saw me. So the truth is, this locket really did belong to him. Wait, but that's perjury. You testified. You testified. You said that locket was yours. I said no such thing, actually. Huh? I merely said that it was a locket with my daughter's picture inside. A subtle distinction, but a distinction nonetheless. And it's the truth. Wait, but then, why? Why was the victim wearing a locket with a picture of your daughter inside it? You're assuming that he didn't swap the picture after taking the locket off. But actually, yeah, he did. Shady Smith did have the locket with Trucy's picture inside, and we won't know why for a long time. Sometimes the straightest path to the truth isn't the best one. Give it time. You're still just getting started with your career. Speaking of which, I may be out of a job. I work for Gavin Law Offices, after all. I still can't believe I just saw Mr. Gavin get led away in handcuffs. Apollo? Yes? How about coming to work for me? Huh? You mean at the Wright and Company law offices? I mean, there's not a single attorney in my generation that doesn't know it. Can't imagine that to be true, but... Wait, but didn't you... You're not a... Oh, I turned in my badge, yes. I'm not an attorney anymore. That incident 7 years ago. That legendary trial. And at the middle of it all was one man, Phoenix Wright. The case reached its sad conclusion and he left law for good. Or until the next video game. Have you ever thought about coming back to the courts? I'm not qualified to stand in a court of law, I'm afraid. Didn't you notice in today's trial? There was a single piece of forged evidence. Forged evidence? What are you talking about? I'm talking about evidence that shouldn't have existed. A naughty magician's trick. One piece of evidence struck me as odd, it's true. It just seemed, well, too perfect. I bet this was the forged evidence. Yeah, the ace of spades. Take that! You mean this, don't you? I got this from your daughter, Mr. Wright. Yes, that card shouldn't have been found at the scene of the crime. Why? Because the killer took it with him when he left, leaving the wrong card in its place, luckily for us. The court can't accept this evidence. It's a fraud. A fraud? How can you be so sure? I would think the only person who could claim it was a fraud would be the one who took the real card from the crime scene, the real killer. My verdict was already handed down 7 years ago. Then you really... Yes, I forged this card. One look at the crime scene should have told you it wasn't real. But you can't do something like that and call yourself an attorney? Who's calling themselves an attorney, Apollo? So it's true. The rumor, it's true. 7 years ago. None of that matters much now, does it? Ugh. Ugh. I punched him. It's your story from here on out, Apollo. Perhaps I can help you turn that next page. My office's address. Drop in if you like. Mr. Wright? Oh, about your uppercut. Try yelling, "Take that," next time. I find it packs a little more punch. And Apollo, thanks for today. I had a good time. See, that's what's so obnoxious about this, is that if you just came off of Rise from the Ashes, that whole thing about forging evidence is something Phoenix would never have done. And yet here we are, in this game, obnoxiously out of character. Anyway, and with that, Mr. Wright walked out the door. And that's how my first trial ended. A lot of mysteries went unsolved, and at the time, I had no idea they were all related. Every mystery that day, connected by a single thread of logic. I'd find that out soon enough. My name is Apollo Justice, attorney at law, and this is how my story begins. The end. Save your current progress? Yes, we will do that. And we'll pick up with episode 2, Turnabout Corner, on the next episode. But I need to... I got another Steam achievement. Yeah, there will be achievements in this, because unlike Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, I haven't beaten this in advance, so you will see all of the Steam achievements. But anyway, I need to go. I need to get some rest. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next case.